This is the first time this year that I've gone into an anime with very high expectations because of the internet or my friends, and I wasn't disappointed, like, at all. What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the channel, and today we are discussing yet another anime of 2024. Yes, I am definitely on a roll right now, and this anime was Frieren Beyond Journey's End. And if you've been following along of my reviews this year at all, you might know that there's been quite a few animes that I've gone into with very high expectations because of the internet and have been a little bit disappointed, but this was probably the first one where I didn't feel that way, so let's dive into it. I will, as always, split this video into parts. We're going to talk about characters first, then the plot, then the animation, and finally my overall and final thoughts of the anime. And as always, just going to put a disclaimer out there, this is just based off of my thoughts and feelings and what I like in a show. There is not going to be anything stated as objective fact in this because there is very little objective fact in media, as media is an art form and art is subjective. So if you disagree with any of my points, you are more than welcome to comment your disagreement. Just as always, please keep it respectful and understand that I am basing this off of what I like and enjoy in a show, which could be very different from what you like and enjoy in a show. So with that, let's talk about characters first. And another disclaimer, characters are my absolute most important thing in a show. I have to love the characters to like a show. If I don't feel invested whatsoever in the main character or the main characters, I'm not going to be that invested in the show. That's how my brain works. So very, very important that we start off this video with characters, and the characters in this show were very, very good. Sometimes I find it hard to pick a favorite character because all the characters just kind of blended together, and that's not usually a good sign. But for this show, I find it hard to pick a favorite character because I genuinely loved and was invested in every single one of them. Starting with Frieren, I really liked what she represented when it came to dealing with grief of losing people. Now, obviously with Frieren, with her being in a situation where she has a much longer life expectancy than humans. In fact, it's revealed midway through the show that she's been around for over 1,000 years. Her development is very interesting and very relatable to, I think, a lot of people, not in the way that, like, she lives way longer than all of her friends, but she experienced a lot of loss and has to deal with that throughout the story. And something that I kind of related to was early on when she had kind of had to emotionally remove herself from a lot of happy feelings when it came to traveling with the heroes because she knows she's gonna outlive them, so she has to kind of not let herself get too attached to them. But then when Himmel died, she was really struggling and upset and like, I really miss him and that sort of thing. And I think that represents something that a lot of us can relate to, and the fact that a lot of us might take a lot of the relationships that we have for granted and we don't realize that we did that until they are gone. I know I've done this in my life. I've lost a lot of people that I loved. I know a lot of other people have lost a lot of people that they loved, and I think we can all kind of understand that, where we just took it for granted. We didn't really care that much. We didn't see them as much as we wanted to. We didn't visit them as much as we wanted to. And then when they were gone, we realized how much we missed out on because of that. I really loved her development and her story. I also loved how she had multiple, like, layered backstories throughout the entire season, where we would see her time, you know, with the heroes, and we would see her time with Flamme, and there was just a lot of layers to her character, and I think there's still a lot more to come, and that really excites me. I think they did a good job at building her character up, not being too just like, oh, here's her entire story right off the bat, so that I'm still interested, but not have it be not enough where I just don't really care. Fern is also a character that I really, really love. If I had to pinpoint a favorite character right now, I think I would have to give it to her. There was something about her that I just really enjoyed. I loved her relationship with Frieren. I really liked how much she seems to really look up to her, but also kind of mother her in a way. In her friend group, she reminds me of me a lot. She's not necessarily the oldest, but she is someone who just kind of takes on that motherly role because she's kind of advanced in her life because of what she's been through, and I can also relate to that a lot. I love how sassy she is, but how kind she is. She's just a really good, pure person, but also doesn't put up with anyone's crap, and I really like that about her. I also really felt that Stark was probably one of the really well-developed characters. His backstory made me cry when it was revealed that his brother was the reason that he ran away from the situation in his village. I definitely teared up over that, and I'm gonna say this as a huge Demon Slayer stan. We all know how much I love Demon Slayer, but Demon Slayer is not without its faults. It has very few in my book, but I would say that Stark is a much better version of Zenitsu. I love Zenitsu. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I love Zenitsu. But I felt like Stark being a scaredy cat, but also being a total badass, which is exactly what Zenitsu is. I think Stark is just a better version of that. I don't feel annoyed by him at any time. He can be a little bit over the top and be very scared at times, but they don't make it so over the top that I get annoyed by him. I think he represents people who are very anxious very well, because he's not just like screaming all the time and getting on people's nerves. He's very, very scared and can get on people's nerves very easily, like Ferns. But it's never so over the top that I can't really stand him, which I do feel that way sometimes with Zenitsu. So I think that Stark is a very good version of that anxious character who is actually totally a badass, and the development is going to work kind of the same. He's still getting those moments, and I think he's going to have a really great moment to come later on in the story where it's just going to be like, oh my god, he's really come into his own, even though he travels with mages and he can't use magic himself, and I'm really excited to see where he goes. All of the side characters were interesting as well. I was surprised that like Himmel and that group was not the main technical group. I knew a little bit about the story heading in, but I was not expecting it to go the way that it did. Himmel, I love, love, love. I love that he's so kind, but also is like kind of full of himself. He's like, get a good picture of me. Also, side note, his voice actor, Okamoto-san. Like, for those of you who don't know, his voice actor is Nobuhiko Okamoto, who is most well known for voicing Genya and Bakugo. Two angry, screaming boys, and hearing him be very, very calm the entire time was almost soothing. I was like, oh, this is so nice. This is Hashira training Genya. This is a Bakugo that I have not met yet, because I'm not a manga reader. And I'm not caught up on the newest season. So, a shout out to him, voice acting Himmel. I would not have figured it out if I did not know it ahead of time that he was voicing Himmel. I loved that whole squad. They're developing them really well as well, even though they're not really around anymore. So I'm really, really excited to see what more is to come. But overall, I give the characters a solid 9.5 out of 10. There is not much else that I could ask for outside of maybe one character that's just a little bit more like super sunshiny in your face kind, which I think Himmel is kind of filling that role as of right now. I don't think this story really has the Tanjiro, like that character that I'm just like obsessed with yet, but I think it could get there once I give it a little bit more time and I see another season. So great job on the characters, 9.5 out of 10. Not much room for growth, but there still is opportunity to possibly become a 10 out of 10 like Demon Slayer is to me. Alright, now let's talk about the plot. So the plot is very good. I did find it slow at times, but I am someone who tends to lean more towards enjoying like the super hyped up shows, the ones that have a lot of like go, 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 go. And this story definitely took a lot of time to just kind of develop where we're at, what's going on. We slowly introduced the characters. So it wasn't like my absolute go-to type of story. However, it did a very, very good job at layering the different timelines. A lot of shows that that kind of constantly switch back between two different, like, complete timelines, like this show does, where, you know, we have the present day timeline, but we get a lot of time with, like, what do they call them? The Band of Heroes or something like that. We get a lot of time with them, and we get a lot of time with Flamme and Frieren from that time as well. And it's very easy to make that very muddled and make it so that you just don't really care for any of the characters because you're just constantly spending time in these different timelines. But this show did such an excellent job at layering all the different timelines together and really pulling at your, like, heartstrings a lot because of it. Even though a lot of it was flashbacks, it was so perfectly intertwined with what was happening in present day that it just made you feel for all of them rather than just, like, one group or not at all. That was by far my favorite part about the plot, was just how well they did that. I think they had a lot of good stakes. I think we have a pretty clear goal ahead in our minds. I was kind of confused at the very beginning because I was like, okay, like, we're starting this story after we defeated the Demon King. My favorite show, the whole entire plot, outside of the main one being turning Nezuko into a human, is to defeat the Demon King. So this is a very new experience to me. So I was like, where are we gonna go? And it took us a while to kind of get to a point where I felt like there was a good end goal. But my husband and I were talking about this after we finished, and we were like, man, when they get to heaven, and you know Frieren's gonna get to have a conversation with Himmel, and maybe even they confess their love to each other or something like that. I don't really care if they do or don't. Like, there's a little bit of romance in this story, but I don't really, like, I could see Himmel and Frieren just being like, I'm proud of you, that kind of thing. No matter what, I feel like their conversation is gonna make me sob. Even my husband was like, that's probably gonna make me tear up, and he doesn't tear up over shows at all. Like, no. He does not care about the characters that much. So I am very excited to see what else comes with the plot. But overall, like, just a very well done plot. It doesn't try to be, like, way too complicated, but it does a very good job at being simple but very nuanced. So I'm going to give the plot an 8.5 out of 10. I just think it was too slow at me for times, to the point of there were a couple times where I just felt a little, like, uninterested and a little bit sleepy. There's definitely some characters that they introduced that I didn't care about, and they spent, in my opinion, too much time on them. So I think there's a lot more room for growth in the plot as far as, like, my interest level goes, even though it still is very, very good. Okay, so next is going to be the animation. Now, I always say this, I am not that well versed in animation, so I don't like to sit on it for too long because I don't really have a place to talk about it a whole lot. The animation in this show was definitely spectacular. All of the elements and, like, the backdrops were gorgeous. I felt like all of the magic fights were very, very well done. It's a new anime, it's made by a really well-known studio, so there's not really much I can say outside of the animation is very, very good, and I give it a 9 out of 10. Okay, but overall, this is definitely one of the higher ranked ones of this year. I would say I've gone through a little bit of a lull of shows that have just been kind of, like, either good, but not anything that I'm, like, genuinely wanting to talk about, or very, quite disappointing compared to what the internet felt about it. So, was really, really happy to enjoy this show so much. I would be down to rewatch it again in a few months probably to get, like, another perspective on it. So, I really, really enjoyed it. The hype that is around it didn't ruin it for me, which has happened quite a few times this year. Overall, I give the show an 8.8 out of 10. Because I genuinely think that there is still a lot of opportunity for it to grow even more on me, which is really, really exciting. But there was some things, like, just involving the plot. Like, if I had a few, like, full episodes where I was just kind of, like, bored by them. So definitely not as high as, like, surprisingly Haikyuu. Still, Haikyuu is, like, really high up there. I haven't talked about Bungo Stray Dogs because I'm actually gonna rewatch it before I make my review, but that was way back in May. I freaking loved that. Like, I was on the edge of my seat. So Frieren didn't quite get to where, like, Bungo Stray Dogs was for me, but it's definitely up there within probably my top 5 of the year. Great job, Frieren. You did a great job of living up to my expectations, unlike quite a few shows this year. So I overall really, really liked it. You guys let me know what you felt about Frieren. If you've seen it, let me know in the comments below how much you liked it, what you liked, what you didn't like, but as always, keep it respectful. But that is it for today's video. If you liked this video, don't forget to like the video and leave a comment on your thoughts on the show. You can also subscribe to my channel. I would greatly appreciate that. It would very much help me out. And you can turn on the notifications by clicking on the bell icon. You can also follow me on social media. I am at Looking Nerdy on Instagram, X, and TikTok, and currently I am really trying to grow my platform on Instagram. So if you're interested in seeing more of my cosplay stuff and just like day-to-day story posts and all that fun stuff, check it out. It is linked in the description below. But thank you so much for watching today, and with that, as always, Johnny!